Headlines is sponsored by Wonder Cement. एक perfect शुरुआत.
President of Portugal Marcelo Rebelo de Sousa accorded ceremonial reception at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. Portuguese President to meet Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Several agreements in various fields expected to be inked between the two countries. Nation remembers martyrs of Pulwama terror attack on its first anniversary. War memorial inaugurated to pay tribute to the martyrs at Letpora camp. Prime Minister, Home Minister and Defence Minister pay tributes to the India's brave hearts. Government closely monitoring the novel coronavirus situation. Prime Minister Narendra Modi appreciates Wuhan rescue operation personnel of Air India and Ministry of Health. High-level group of ministers review the current status for prevention and management. Death toll in China crosses 1400 mark. Today is the birth anniversary of former External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj. Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Home Minister Ahmad Shah remember the charismatic leader. Prime Minister shares she epitomized dignity, decency and unwavering commitment to public service and was an exceptional colleague and an outstanding minister. In international news, the US Senate passes legislation restricting the President Donald Trump's ability to wage a war against Iran. 8 of Trump's fellow Republicans joined Democrats to pass the war power resolution by 55 to 45 votes, requiring Trump to remove US troops engaged in hostilities against Iran.
We have our own triple balance sheet issues, but despite all this, the budget has had a vast range of progressive and forward-looking measures to take India to a high trajectory growth rate. And we'll discuss some of these issues and look at the budget and beyond. I have the pleasure of working with the Honorable Finance Minister as Secretary DIPT, and that time most initiatives of these being business, making India, startup India, were very under her leadership. She always been extremely open and receptive to ideas, and we had a free and frank discussion so that all of you can give your ideas to her. I would extremely thankful to you, ma'am, for joining us today, so I leave the floor.
Good morning. I'll start with an apology. I was with the Home Minister and unexpectedly the meeting extended and even to this one. So I'm sorry again for reaching late out here. Amitabh is right. Quite a lot of issues have already been spoken about. It is the interaction that I want to place a lot of importance and also give more time for that. On the budget, I don't need to say anything more. I think we've been going around talking about it. The budget itself, very elaborate and extended speech was in the House, which most of you all have noticed. From my end, I must thank the entire ministry's team, which spent really ungodly hours getting into the details of what had to be brought in. As you all know, from July we've been discussing, and some of which took the shape of some announcements which happened during the time between July and February. But many which got left over were all carried forward. Again considered to see if there's anything that we can bring in the budget. And if I can borrow the words of one of the observers with whom we met up in Mumbai, after having placed the budget in the parliament when we went around Mumbai, Chennai and Kolkata, one of the commentators did say something which probably captures somewhat what I see as the fallout of the budget, immediate fallout, if not for medium or longer term, that it is one budget where the impact on the equity market, the bond market, and also the currency have had a positive impact in that the currency market remains stable, the bond market's yields cooled off, and the equity was positive. So I want to take that as a motivating immediate fallout. But of course, we are open to hear a lot more from all of you also, that as and when the tweakings will have to happen to the budget, or as and when more has to be done beyond the budget, post the budget, we are willing. So with that said, I think I'll keenly hear all that all of you all have to say and suggest to us. Thank you.
So, ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of participants here today, and we have very limited time, but we want everyone to have a say, and I would request that try and conclude just point-wise in 2 minutes, and I would request subsequent people to just ensure that the points made earlier are not repeated. So we start with Mr. C.A. Gupta, who's tax partner in Deloitte Haskins and Sons.
Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, sir, and thank you for this opportunity once again. I'm sure a lot of it has already been discussed on budget perspective. I had just three broad points. One is today the obligation to deduct tax does not extend to individuals on a lot of payments unless you are subject to tax audit. But one section which has not been extended is the deduction section 195. And with the expansion of the definition of business connection and significant economic presence, it is quite likely that all of us around the table today, or maybe in due course, will be subject to this obligation to deduct tax on payments to non-residents with the advent of this OTT platform. So therefore, my request is, if this can be considered, that obligation on individuals to deduct tax on payments to non-residents, if that can be mitigated in one way or the other. Either it can be extended only to payments made by individuals who are subject to tax audit reform and have income exceeding certain limit, or some other mechanisms will be incorporated. That was point number one. The second one was with respect to tax collection at source. Again, with the advent of technology, a lot of data is already available in the tax authorities. So tax collection at source, it increases compliance burden, while the tax can be offset against the advance tax payment. So it's not really a measure to collect tax. I know there has been report today as well as to what's the rationale behind the introduction. A lot of people are not filing the returns, but that will increase the compliance burden on individuals on the system. The third one was with respect to again public provident fund. It's not necessarily a tax savings instrument nowadays. It's more of a savings scheme. The limit was increased from 70 to 1 lakh in 2011, and from 1 lakh to 1 lakh 50 in 2014. So do you think it will be time to have that limit increased, which will also be a resource for the government, but at the same time an avenue for the Indian individuals to make investments?
Thanks. We have this ticker going on there, so kindly watch the time. Next is Mr. Alok Saraf, partner PwC.
Hi, thank you for this. Hi, thank you for this opportunity to speak. Ma'am, in your speech you have talked about a taxpayer's charter, and we see a lot of disputes between the department and the assessees, and people try to interpret words basis what convenience is to each other. So, and this is like a new thought that we had, is that can we have guiding principles part of the tax charter where somebody defines what are the guiding principles? So like just as an example, if I'm doing a corporate restructuring just for ease of business, I have two businesses together, and if I'm separating them, then those transactions, if it does not lead into any cash inflow, then it should be exempt completely. So if you can have certain guiding principles, so like if I'm doing a family restructuring or I'm aligning my assets between my family members, then there shouldn't be any taxes on those kind of stuff. So we can have certain guiding principles of any change or amendment that we get, and once that guiding principle becomes part of the charter, any future amendments can be linked to that, and it can help the regulator, it can help the assessee, both as well as the courts when they are evaluating any point to say that, okay, fine, this was the intent, this was the law. So like we have one amendment around the REIT InvIT regulations where dividend is now being subject to tax under the REIT InvIT regulations. A lot of money has flown in this platform over the last 2-3 years, and now with this change, what happens to those platforms? So if we have something like that, which is a charter, which is documented at a policy level, and then every change and every amendment has to keep that in mind. So we thought that in your taxpayers charter, if you could have certain guiding principles basis which law can be framed, it would be very helpful to minimize litigations. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Savan Godiawala, Senior Partner, Deloitte.
Yeah, good morning. Thank you, Mr. Kant and Madam, to give me the opportunity to be here. I have a few points, and they are beyond budget, I would say, more than the tax provisions, proposals only. I would like to mention that in the economy where so many things happening, so much budgetary allocation across, that something which needs to be done in terms of how do we convert the economy from policy or reforms coming through into guidance. Because if I look at this like LRS, so welcome change of 5% TCS, that, but LRS has been there, 250,000. How do we say that there's a guidance that LRS will by itself increase to say 350 if the foreign exchange reserves are 550 billion and maybe 500 at a 750 billion. So guidance, same thing can be applied to FEMA in terms of the sectoral caps in the FDI. Like whether it is airlines or insurance or telecom or whichever multi-brand retail, how can we arrive at a kind of a guidance that does not mean a policy where I say that forex or CAD or inflation at a certain rate I would trigger this and open up or whether it converts from government. That's point number one. Point number two is on the IPR. This Monday we have the global IPR index which says that India has fallen from 36 to 40. And now this, for the investment climate in the country, it is so very important. We are 38% versus the top countries in the world at 90% plus in the IPR in the ratings. Now it is about one admissibility and another enforceability. If we work on that and have that, that would be a very important thing for improving the climate for the global guys to have a comfort. Point number three is IBC. IBC, a very welcome change in the amendment that 330 days should be the total period anyhow. But madam, in the real world, we are not seeing the admissions happening for more than 330 days in so many cases, even now. We are seeing the orders being reserved for months together, even when everything is all over. So how do we achieve that 330 days when these are the practical difficulties? Point number four, education, and I'm a professor, so I'll take 10 seconds more. Education is a huge budgetary allocation that we have been making for infrastructure and delivery. Can we have something where the focus on curriculum and pedagogy now so that we change the methodologies of education? Thank you, madam.
Thank you. Mr. Rajiv Memoni.
Thank you. Thank you, ma'am. Just on the point on, I think REIT and InvITs has been made on several platforms, and I'm sure that most people are aware of it. The only thing I would like to add to that was when this regime was introduced, after almost 4-5 years of elaborate discussion, there was a separate tax regime that was developed for REIT and InvITs, based on how they are taxed globally. And it took a few years for it to gain momentum, and now it has gained momentum. $3 to $5 billion have come in. Likelihood is that almost $30 to $40 billion will come in the next year, 12 to 18 months. A lot of it into sectors like real estate and infrastructure, which are in dire need of long-term funds. So my request, ma'am, would be if we can restore status quo. I think it will go a big way in creating that relief. The second thing, I think the disinvestment process, as you rightly mentioned, ma'am, there's been a lot of development that has happened. You've identified the assets and everything. I would only request that in some of these assets, and particularly if I take the example of LIC and others, there is a lot of tweak and amendments that will be required to the LIC Act or some of the other areas, and that would have a significant impact on the valuation and other things. So my only request, ma'am, would be that if we can create smaller groups where we can, a lot of work has been done, where we can represent and move with speed, then I think the laudable objective that you raised of achieving the disinvestment targets, I think can be achieved. But I think the only thing would be if we can move with speed. And since I have 10-15 seconds, I would only add that on sovereign wealth funds, what the initiative we have taken is again will go a long way in getting again long-term capital into some of these sectors. A lot of people are asking whether pension funds will get covered in this, and is it very narrow to only sovereign wealth funds? So some clarity on that, especially the large global pension funds. Thank you.
Kaku Nakate, President, Bank of America.
Good afternoon, ma'am. I think the biggest point that I had was on retail InvIT. 140 lakh crores are likely to be in the InvIT stage, toll roads being one of them, and a lot of work has gone into it. So over the last 4 years, we've worked with a different government to get the exemptions down. So the company is going to pay tax as a corporate. So ma'am, if you could look at the withholding tax also and that going, because the flip side of this is that the yield curves will go up and India should not have a higher yield curve for infrastructure assets. But that's a bigger point from a rating perspective also. The second point I just wanted to make was that the foreign banks and the corporates had a 10% differential tax, but now the corporate tax has gone down to 22, but the foreign banks is still at around 40, plus there's a withholding of 18. We do see that the differential should continue and banks should be...
Cooperation is set to grow.
Our cooperation link started about 20 years ago with the National Institute of Oceanography in the area of marine robotics to develop autonomous robots for ocean exploration. And together we developed what I think was the first civilian prototype of such a system. And ever since we have been cooperating on the development of other kinds of robots for scientific applications.
Portugal has become a springboard for Indian companies to set base and expand to the rest of Europe.
Portugal was very important for us to launch other countries because of the geographic region that we are at the moment. Also, we have really good relationships with most of the countries around Europe, South America, even Africa. So it helped us in that relationship, in that bit, it helped us a lot.
Post-Brexit, Portugal aims to give a foothold to companies based in UK and looking to expand further into Europe.
Portuguese Prime Minister has actually recently declared again when he visited India that he would like to receive companies who are based in the UK to keep their base in the UK but to have a foot in the EU in Portugal.
With Portuguese platforms hand-holding Indian businesses, there are opportunities waiting for Indian startups and entrepreneurs.
We give them complete assistance, we do hand-holding for them. From India, we bring them here, we assist them in setting up the business.
Diversity and plurality is a shared value in India and Portugal. Abdul Wakil, only the second Muslim to come to Portugal in 1956, is a well-respected person of Indian origin in Portugal who was conferred with the Prasar Bharati Samman by India, and the Portuguese government has worked with him to organize interreligious dialogues in Portugal.
I do a lot of interreligious dialogue in the mosque. When the President Marcelo was there, we had 17 or 18 religions lined up, each one reading a sentence of their religion.
Political ties, development cooperation, commercial collaboration, people-to-people ties, and shared values of democracy and plurality together form a strong foundation of the India-Portugal partnership.
And while India is fully prepared in every way against the coronavirus menace, Prime Minister Narendra Modi praised the Wuhan rescue operation that conducted the evacuation of stranded Indians from Wuhan. Prime Minister has issued a letter of appreciation to the team members of the operation. This letter would be handed over to the crew by the Minister of State for Civil Aviation. Air India had conducted an emergency evacuation operation from Wuhan city, the epicenter of the deadly coronavirus flu. Despite being aware of the severe situation in the region, Air India sent two B747 aircraft with teams of the airline as well as officials from the Ministry of Health on 2 consecutive days, 31st of January and the 1st of February, returning the next day. The Ministry of Health and Family Welfare has shared a letter on its Twitter handle in which a Chinese national who was isolated in Naidu Hospital in Pune on exhibiting symptoms of COVID-19 shared his thoughts. In the letter, the Chinese national has thanked the doctors, nurses and other staff of the hospital in Pune for their care. Staying with the virus story, the Chennai port has temporarily decided to ban the entry of crew on board ships from China, Thailand and Singapore into the port by stopping the issue of landing permit or shore leave pass. Ships from these countries considered vulnerable to the spread of the coronavirus disease were also prohibited from dumping their garbage in the vicinity of the port. As part of a stepped-up monitoring regime since the coronavirus outbreak, health officials have been closely monitoring the health condition of the crew of all the ships calling at Chennai port, besides checking the countries visited by the ships. Captains of vessels have also been asked to share the health condition of their crew via email on a daily basis as the ship approaches the Indian coast. Meanwhile, China and the world continue to grapple with the spread of the virus. Death toll in China stands at 1,487 people, while 2 deaths have been reported abroad. Japan and the Philippines have 1 death case each. China has reported 63,767 confirmed cases of COVID-19, while 505 cases have been reported from 24 other countries. Meanwhile, the number of cases and deaths jumped sharply on Thursday, with authorities changing the way they keep track of the disease and not primarily because of any change in the shape of the outbreak. Experts believe the new approach should catch many cases that have been missed before. This will allow more patients to get treatment and be quarantined faster. WHO has said a sharp rise in the reported coronavirus cases in China due to a change in the counting methods did not represent a big shift in the epidemic. At a press conference, head of WHO's health emergency programs, Michael Ryan, said this does not represent a significant change in the trajectory of the outbreak. In a solemn tribute to the late External Affairs Minister Sushma Swaraj on a 68th birth anniversary, the government has renamed Prasar Bharati Kendra as Sushma Swaraj Bhavan and Foreign Service Institute, Delhi as Sushma Swaraj Institute of Foreign Service. The Ministry of External Affairs in a statement said the two institutions have been renamed in a solemn tribute to the invaluable contribution of Sushma Swaraj to Indian diplomacy, the cause of the Indian diaspora and the ethos of public service. It also said that this is a fitting tribute to a great public figure who continues to inspire us. The illustrious leader who brought a rare empathy and a human approach to India's diplomacy as External Affairs Minister in the previous Narendra Modi government died on August 6th last year following a massive cardiac arrest. As External Affairs Minister, Sushma Swaraj brought a sense of assertiveness in India's diplomacy, besides engaging the diaspora, a central focus of the country's foreign policy priorities. Sushma was one of the most followed foreign ministers on Twitter globally. She was known for helping Indians stuck abroad, as she was quick to respond to their calls for help on social media. Prime Minister Narendra Modi remembered the former External Affairs Minister, late Sushma Swaraj, on her birth anniversary today. In a tweet, he also shared an old photo with her. Prime Minister Modi tweeted, and I quote, "Remembering Sushma ji, she epitomized dignity, decency and unwavering commitment to public service. Firmly rooted in India's values and ethos, she had great dreams for our nation. She was an exceptional colleague and an outstanding minister." Union Home Minister Ahmad Shah paid tributes to the exceptional leader Sushma Swaraj on her Jayanti. In a tweet, he said, a disciplined karyakarta, a fierce orator and an outstanding parliamentarian who never compromised on her ideals. She always will be remembered for her kind nature and helping the distressed in their trying times. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman is currently holding a meeting with economists at the Niti Aayog. Let's listen in to what she has to say.
Medium or longer term, that it is one budget where the impact on the equity market, the bond market and also the currency have had a positive impact, in that the currency market remains stable, the bond market's yields cooled off and the equity was positive. So I want to take that as a motivating immediate follow-up.
Army officials briefed the second batch of 25 foreign envoys visiting Jammu and Kashmir on the security situation in the valley on Thursday. The delegation was on a 2-day visit as part of a union government help trip. The aim was to help the envoys make a first-hand assessment of the situation in Jammu and Kashmir since the revoking of Article 370 and 35A. Envoys have said they have got the full picture of normalcy prevailing in Jammu and Kashmir. They also termed the meeting with senior officers of administration as quite fruitful.
Well, I see this as a region which is a very, very important region of India, very strategic, a very, very beautiful part of India, and a region which I can see now that the young people who I've been talking to and some of the other people I've been talking to, all they want is to develop this area. I am much, much buoyed by this. I feel happy and my spirits have been raised because all the time I'd heard about this region, it was about conflict and conflict. Now I see a lot of hope ahead of me.
I mean, you could see people doing their businesses, running their businesses. I could see kids, going to schools as well, shops open. So it's very good to see, the situation getting normalized. And I really hope that this is the case in other parts of the state.
We are very pleased to see that there is commerce and traffic and people in the streets. We met with a group of businessmen from Kashmir. And they all discussed their anxieties with the situation, what they expect from the main government, and some people were very happy that 370 has been eliminated.
Well, that's all we have time for, but you can catch all the latest news and updates while you're on the move. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. Also, you can follow us on Twitter in English and Hindi to get the latest updates on news as it develops. That's all we have time for. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.